My name is Tue Nguyen. I am chef and co-owner of ＤD in West Hollywood.
Welcome to the Vietnamese. I'm your host, Kenneth Nguyen. Being part of a culture of nearly 100 million Vietnamese people in the world today comes with a lot of pain, proud history, and privilege. Join me as I highlight and explore the Vietnamese experience from all over. Thank you so much, and congratulations on opening DD. It's so exciting to hear about.
Thank you. Have you gone? Have you visited us yet?
I have not, because during the opening, many of my friends were scheduled to go, and I kept getting asked to come. And I just got back from vacation, so I will be making my way out very soon.
I'll take that excuse. I'll take the vacation excuse, I guess.
That's so funny. Well, congratulations once again. Where did you grow up?
Well, half of my life I grew up in Vietnam, so I was born and went to school there. First language was Vietnamese, and then the other half of my life, when I moved over to the States when I was 8 years old, I grew up in Oxnard. Are you familiar with
Yeah,
Oxnard?
I sure
Yeah.
am.
So I grew up in Oxnard, went to school over there, high school, and then as soon as I graduated high school, I moved to LA to go to culinary school.
Oh, where did you go to culinary school?
I went to culinary school in North Hollywood. It's called the Arts Institute.
My brother went to the Art Institute in Santa Monica, and he studied design. So I know.
Damn.
Sa-
Damn.
Let's talk about that. So, do you think that having that foundation in the kitchen at a school served you, or do you think it's really a scam?
Well, when I say that it's a scam, I think it's more so like it's so expensive for what you get, right? Like you pay what $25,000 a year, and it's like 2 to 4 years. And where I was going, they were basically putting us in like the same classes over and over again with just like different titles for the classes. And like the school got sued for it and everything. So like I know I wasn't the only one like being scammed, but what I learned in school was very helpful. The skills that I learned through school was very helpful, but I feel like I could have gotten those skills just working at a kitchen, you know, working like in real life instead of like paying the money to go to school for that. I could have just like worked on the line or as a prep cook or something.
Okay, I want to get into the weeds with this because I think that when I haven't been to culinary school, so I'm just imagining that the things that you learn in the classroom breaks down like the core, like all of the foundational stuff when you are going through class, and then when you get into the real world, you get this sort of background understanding of like the food that you're preparing.
Yeah, like you learn techniques and you learn kitchen safety and you learn just like all the technical stuff about like the culinary world and like how you're supposed to do certain things, right? But like culinary school really doesn't teach you like your style of cooking. Like they don't teach you how to make food delicious. Like they'll tell you to salt your food and all of that, but you don't really go into like the nitty-gritty of like this um of like teaching you how to build flavors. It's more so just like techniques and like the technicalities of cooking. And so for me, I always say that I learned cooking and I learned how to cook through culinary school, but my style of cooking, I learned it through eating my mom's food and eating the food that like I grew up eating, which is Vietnamese food.
What made you decide to want to go into food?
Well, my mom, she's a great cook, but she did not like people in her kitchen. So I love food and I always wanted to learn, but like I didn't get the opportunity to do it because she was like one of those moms where she's like, no, get out of my kitchen, you're gonna make a mess. And so like I was never really allowed in the kitchen, but I was always really interested in food just because like I honestly don't know what stems from it. Maybe it was because when I moved over here I watched like a lot of television and I watched a lot of Food Network And so like that was probably where like my love of food and cooking came from. But yeah, like it wasn't until culinary school where I actually like got behind the fire and like started cooking and started to learn how to cook properly. Yeah.
But that decision to go, you had to like kind of run it through your mom and dad, or but didn't they push back on it?
They definitely did because like through my whole like high school career, it was like, oh, I'm gonna be a nurse. I'm gonna apply to nursing school. Like it was like a straight line, you know? And they're like, yeah, okay, cool. And then as soon as uh senior year came around and everybody started to do their college applications and the pressure was like getting real and I just knew deep down, I knew it, like I just knew deep down that like I wasn't gonna finish because that just wasn't something that I was interested in. I wasn't interested in becoming a nurse or a doctor or anything in the medical field, and like I didn't feel that passion and I didn't feel like it would make me happy. I didn't feel like I would find joy in it. And so I just asked myself, like, what would you find joy in? And at that moment, honestly, it was just like, what if you pursue food? I literally just asked myself, what if you pursue food because you like to eat? Like, what if you just apply to culinary school and see what you get from it? And it was just a what if, you
Wow.
know, it wasn't even like a okay, this is my action plan, this is what I'm gonna do, and then I'm gonna like have a restaurant, and then I'm gonna do this, that, and the third. It was more like I just feel like I would feel more joy over here versus going to nursing school. And I don't know what gave me the balls to do it. I just did it. And at that moment, like I remember telling my parents, I remember that night very vividly. It was like my dad was like folding laundry and I came up to him and I was like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And then I just told him, I was like, I'm not going to apply to nursing school. I waited until my application to the Arts Institute was accepted. And so I was like, I got accepted into culinary school. And it was like the longest pause of my life. He gave me the longest pause. There was no reaction, no anything. It was just like quiet, long pause,
And this
stops folding
got out of left
laundry.
field. Complete.
Yes, completely. And then he goes, you want to cook for people for the rest of your life? What is this? This is what happened to nursing school? What happened to this, that, you know? And I was just like, I just told him and I was being very honest. And I was like, I honestly don't feel like I would finish. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't feel that that's where I belong. I don't feel like that's where my path is. And my mom came out of the shower now and he goes, ask your daughter what she wants to do. Ask her right now. And it's like I told her, and it was also another long pause. And I just remember them just being so upset and just being like, we came over here so you can cook for people, you know? And it was just like, ouch, I'm sorry, but like, this is something that I want to do. And so eventually they were like, well, if this is really something that you want to do, then you go ahead and do it and you support yourself. So I didn't get any support from them, meaning like they didn't help me out with rent or anything when it came to like me living out in LA. And they just didn't help me. And so I remember like for the first few months going to culinary school, I would like live in my car because
Yeah.
to I couldn't afford anywhere in LA. And at that time, like I didn't know people in LA that would like I don't know, couch surf or like stay over, you know? So like eventually I would make friends that would like let me stay at their house, or and then eventually I found like a room for rent, you know. But yeah, like I remember living in my car and showering. So my school was right in front of like a 24-hour fitness, and so I would have that membership and I would go and shower at the gym. And then there was like a Panda Express right next door to the gym, and it was like I would go in and get like a plate, a panda plate, and I would portion it out for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then I would park my car at the Ralph's in like down the street. Like I remember this every time I go in that, it's the arts district in North Hollywood. So every time I go in that area and I'm just like, wow, I can't believe like for some weird reason that area felt like home to me because that was like one of my very like core experience when I first moved to LA.
That is fucking insane.
Insane. But in the moment, honestly, it when you're going through it, it was just like you keep your head down and you just put one foot in front of the other and you just gotta go and you just gotta do it. And that's honestly how I got through it because there wasn't a moment where I felt sorry or I felt bad for myself because at that moment I was like, this is you said that this is what you want to do. So just do it.
All right. So did you ever have to go to therapy to unfuck like that problem that you have with your mom and dad? I mean, how is it going with them and you?
I'm going to therapy now, and it's honestly not really like that moment didn't really fuck me up as much as like my childhood did, you know? And so now I'm just like unlearning all like the toxic behaviors. I mean, like my parents had me young, and so it was just like kids raising kids. You know, so like now I have a better understanding of like why did they did the things that they did, and like and at the end of the day, they just wanted the best for me.
Yeah. Now, did you ever have to confront them for like, I can't imagine not being supported for years or months after you're like showing dedication to the journey. And then they're like still not like really backing you up because they don't agree with where you're.
Yeah, they didn't really understand. They really didn't understand what I even did before like the restaurant, you know, because like Asian parents, like, what are you when they brag to their friends? If you're a doctor and a nurse, that's an easy brag. Oh, my daughter's a nurse. You know, like that's an easy brag, but it's like if I make videos on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, how are they gonna brag to their friends about it? So it wasn't like they couldn't they knew that I could support myself now, but they didn't understand like to what extent and how. You know, they don't really understand like the social media world. And so like now that the restaurant is here, they could be like, oh, okay, this is a place, a thing that I can show people, that I can like tell them to visit, you know. So that's like an easier way for them to be like, oh, this is what my daughter does.
But when you were growing up, did they see or did you exhibit any signs of like loving food, making food? I mean, of course, eating food, but did you exhibit signs of like really mechanically getting into the kitchen and all that?
Just eating food. And because my mom was always like, no, don't get into the kitchen with me, I would be scared to be in the kitchen with her, right? But whenever I would be home alone, I loved to just be in the kitchen and play around. And then I would obviously make a mess, and then she'd be like, see, you always make a mess in my kitchen.
And after you graduated from Art Institute, where did you think that you were headed?
Um, well, right soon after I graduated, like a couple months after like COVID started, and the shutdown happened. And that was honestly when my career really like skyrocketed because of the videos that I would post. Because up until then, I didn't post cooking videos. I didn't post cooking content. I posted eating content. I would post like travel eating content, but it wasn't until the pandemic where I was like, well, I can't travel anywhere. I can't visit any restaurants. So let's just show people you know how to cook, because up until that point, I was still very insecure of showing people what I know, just because I feel like I should get more experience, and I still have a long ways to go when it comes to cooking. I wasn't sure yet, and I just went for it, and it was very well received. And so I was like, okay, I don't have to be perfect at it. I just have to just keep going because these people love it, you know?
You know, along the journey of any Instagram or influencer, there's this sort of shift where you go from like, okay, I'm just making videos to like, I'm bringing in cameras and I'm going hard. Did that happen from the beginning for you, or was it like a gradual shift and growth?
It was definitely a gradual shift and growth because in the beginning it was just me, myself, and my phone. And then I started to get more gear, like actual cameras and lights. And then I started to learn how to edit. So I would just do that all of that by myself. And then up until last year and this year, I hired a production company that takes care of my content. So I would just have to show up and film, and then they would take care of the editing and the lighting and all of that because doing doing lighting, doing sound, doing like making sure that you're in frame and also being talent in front of the camera was so much. And then after all of that, I would have to break it down and then go and edit my own videos. That was like a lot of work, and burnout was getting real because it was just me, you know. But now I have a whole team to like execute, and that makes me feel like I can have more room and space to grow my business because I'm not worried about, oh, I need to edit this video, you know?
Yeah, I mean, your stuff looks amazing. It's dynamic, the cuts and just the framing, the colors, the visuals, it's all perfect. And then even the scripting is like it moves very, it flows. And I always thought to myself, I'm like, wow, like you go from somebody who is just shooting cooking videos to this level of production. I always know that there's like this journey. But
Absolutely.
is the journey and is the growth I guess my question is it worth the trade-off and handing off that control to a team to do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For me, I honestly am not a control freak. Um, in every aspect of my business, I have people in my team that I will not work with somebody that I cannot trust. And when it comes to working with new people, I give them the benefit of the doubt, and if they give me a reason to not trust them, I just cut it off, right? But every single person that I'm working with right now that's on my team, they just all want the best for me. And that's all that I could ask for. When it comes to my manager, when it comes to my lawyers, when it comes to my business manager, I trust them. And my production company, like I trust everything that they do, but like obviously they would have to get the green light from me, you know. But yeah, like I think having a really solid team and surrounding yourself with people that just want to see you win is like a recipe for success.
When along the journey did you go, oh shit, this is real? The shit just got real.
Um,
In your Instagram, in your social media journey.
I think it was when I got with my manager in 2020, and I saw the business that he could, like I saw the business that he built for a couple of people that I've followed, and I understand like I I didn't understand at the time how much work it would take to build a business like that, but I was hungry. I was ready to work. I was ready to do anything. You know, at that point, I was living like I moved back home when COVID started. So I was like, I have nowhere to go. It's only up from here, you know. So like whatever that like he told me I should do with my content, like I did. And I listened to his advice, and like it's been up ever since, you
Wow.
know?
Two things. How did you meet your manager? And what kinds of things did he tell you to do that changed the game for you?
So my manager, his name is Ray Hughes, and I think he's one of the best managers in the game because he's not money hungry. He chooses talent that he really really believes in, and he's very like choosy with the talent that he wants to work with. Um and he saw me through social media. He started following me and he started keeping up with like all the content that I would do. He really liked me in front of the camera, and we set up a meeting. And I wasn't really looking for a manager at that time, but it wouldn't hurt to get one.
Yeah.
I was doing all of my business deals. I have no idea how to do business deals. I don't know how to negotiate. Like before him, whatever the brand said that I would get paid, I would say yes. But then he would come in and like do all the business side of like the brand deals and everything. And I think he just understands how to build a solid foundation for a long-term success because he's not in it for like just quick money. I think he's really in it for like big and long-term success. And that's how like the advice that he would give me is just to be consistent because really at the end of the day, consistency is key no matter what you do and what field you're in.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah, and he keeps me and my team in check every single day. And he keeps
wow,
everyone sharp, very, very sharp.
amazing. And what were the things that he told you to do? I mean, I don't want to give away any secret sauce, but like,
No, there's honestly no secret sauce. He literally just told me like, "Hey, listen, like you're gonna have to work hard and like it's gonna be a lot of work, but at the end of it, it's gonna be worth it. As long as you're consistent, as long as you're constantly telling your truth, your story, and as long as you're providing people with value, then that's your keys to success. That's the secret sauce. Like you just the one thing about social media is like people can see through your bullshit anytime, any day, with any type of content. So it's like just be real, just be you, stay true to yourself, keep telling your story, keep inspiring people with your story because there's so many of people that are going through the same thing, and they can relate and be relatable. Don't be a fucking cool guy. I'm sorry, I shouldn't cuss, but don't be a cool guy. But like he just tells me to always just be relatable because at the end of the day, that's what people like. That's what people watch me for. And I have no reason to not be
yeah.
relatable.
Speaking of being relatable, I was really touched to learn about your trip to Vietnam recently with a group of 40, I believe.
Yes.
Is that all about? I know we're gonna get to the restaurant and everything, but before we build up to that,
I
what?
know there's just so many things. It's crazy because I have all these ideas in my head and my manager asked me when we first started, he was like, okay, list all the things that you want to achieve and list all the things that you want to do. Even if it sounds crazy right now, just
Hmm.
list them all, right? And I listed a whole list and 3 years later, we're probably like more than halfway through the list,
Wow.
right? But one of my the reason why I make recipe videos and specifically Vietnamese recipe videos is because I love to share the culture with everybody. Like for me, as a young woman coming from Vietnam, I in my brain I still think in Vietnamese and I still find so you know how like when you're in Vietnam and you I don't know if you can relate to this, but in Vietnam I would have like a group of friends and a group of people that I would hang out with. And when I came over here, I would find like commonalities between the people that I hung out with versus with over in America in Vietnam. So I would compare and contrast like a lot of like the differences and the similarities of like, oh, that's different. This is how we do it in Vietnam. I was never like shy to show people like how we do it in Vietnam and the culture, just because I just think that that lunchbox story that like all the
Yeah,
immigrant
it's called
have.
Kikamun. It's called a gamun. And I have it in my notes to ask about that too.
Yeah. So like I remember there was this one time where I had like a what is it? Thịt kho. My mom packed thịt kho for me and it was so good. I was eating it for lunch and this kid was like, "What is that?" And I was like, it's good. Do you want to try it? I was never ever embarrassed. Never, like never ever embarrassed of the food that I ate and never ever embarrassed of the culture that I come from. And so for me, I love to just showcase the culture. And so the trip is the way for me to do that, like through my recipe videos, but then the trip itself, like bringing people to Vietnam, like actual physically bring them to Vietnam and show them around and have them be in that environment, driving them around in those like mopeds. It's you can't like find that anywhere else in the world. And like Saigon is such a I don't know, the energy of Saigon is so different. The energy in Vietnam itself is so different. And when you see you with your own eyes, like the street vendors, like how there actually are over there, and how the people of Vietnam are, it just changes you. And I just want to expose more people to that.
And how did you get to share that trip? I mean, did you have an open call for your audience, or what was the procedure? What was the protocol to get those 40 to Vietnam?
So yeah, we worked through a travel agency in Vietnam, and what we did was like we would do a background check on all the people that like applied and paid for the trip, and if there was like anything sus, we'd be like, no, you can't go. But like honestly, all the people that like go on my trips, they're mostly like young Asian girls, and it's like a big girls trip, and it's so fun.
And how long have you been doing it? And how many times have you been doing it?
So last year was my first time, and this year I'm doing it again.
Well, and there's got to be some hairy situations or some situations where like people are not getting along, or you got one that is like,
Honestly, like I thought it would be like that, but like everybody was like very like so I had two different groups. One was 20 and another one was 20, so it was 40 in total. But like honestly, everyone like got along, and it was such a great like thank God there hasn't been any situations and any cat fights or
yeah,
anything like that, you know? Like it's all been like very fun, and like everyone really gets along.
what a cool thing to do. It
it's
really is.
it's so cool because it's like you get to bring people over to Vietnam, you get to explore, and you get to eat the food, and you get to just like hang out, party, have fun.
And it's like a week.
Yeah, this time is 13 days. Yeah.
And I mean, can you go over the basic itinerary of like, what do you do?
So, the first day is always like everyone comes in, we have a welcome dinner. That's when everyone gets acquainted and like meet each other. And then the next morning we get started. So last year it was like boom, boom,
Go,
boom,
go,
boom,
go.
boom, no breaks, right? And so this year I planned it a little better because last year I just wanted everyone to feel like they were getting their money's
Mhm.
worth, but I was tired. I was like, damn, I need a nap, you know? So this year I scheduled in like some breaks in between. And so we would start in Saigon this year, and we would explore the city, go around and enjoy the food. And then we're gonna go up to Nha Trang. So we all of us are flying together to Nha Trang, and we're gonna explore like the beach over there, the clubs, and then we're gonna go up to what is it, Hanoi, which is I've never been there, so and I'm really excited. And then we're going to Dalat too. So yeah.
These are complete strangers that go.
It's like it's complete strangers, yes, but I connect with them through social media. Like for me, I follow everyone. Like if you DM me and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to go on this trip with you, I follow them back and I get to know them and like watch their stories and see like what they're up to. Because at the end of the day, like these are regular people, and like I want to build a relationship with them. That's how the foundation gets stronger, you know, because if they're willing to support like this trip, whatever I do for the rest of my career, they will also support that. And like just building that relationship is so, so important to me.
It's crazy. I used to talk about like when I first started doing this, I would like come to a podcast episode because somebody was a chef or somebody opened up a restaurant. But then it's like, I kept saying it in the early days where it's like you come for the chef story and then like all these other cool things like this trip. That to me, I would love for this episode to be taken over by, I have like 1,000 more questions about this trip, right? Because that's a big risk that you take 40 people that you don't really know on a lot can go wrong with liability, a lot can go,
Yep.
and it just seems like it's just happening. And I'm like, that's the best way to be an ambassador to our culture. So bravo and congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's all very, very exciting. And I thank the universe every single day that I have such a strong and solid team that takes care of all the back end. And all I need to worry about is
Doing you.
literally that.
Yep.
It's what
Amazing.
happens when you trust the people you work with. And it's what happens when you surround yourself with people that just wants to see you win. It's no secret. There's no secret sauce.
Yeah. But, unfortunately, a lot of people, whether they're in our culture or from without, humans are plagued with traumatic and things that need to heal. And we bring baggage into our relationships and business. And, sometimes we don't trust. And I think that's a hard thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But like for me, I think it's very simple. Like if you take care of the people that you work with, they'll take care of you. For me, I never come to anything with greed. I never do anything with greed in mind. Like it's never about the money with me. It's always about like how is this going to improve either me or improve the culture or improve like just how can I add value to these people's lives, you know? So yeah, I think it's very simple.
So where along the journey did you go, I'm going to open up a restaurant?
It's so crazy. So, I still think that it's crazy every day. Every day that I drive to the restaurant, I'm like, oh my God, I'm driving to the restaurant. Like driving that drive from K-Town to WeHo, I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. But so after the pandemic, when everybody started to go back out again, back outside, I decided like, okay, because up until that point, I was just like an internet chef, a TikTok cook, you know? And like I wanted to be taken more serious. So I wanted to host pop-ups so people that watch my videos online can come and see what I'm doing. They can come and try the food out and see if they like it, you know? So that's why I wanted to host pop-ups. And my first pop-up was actually at an HWood location, which is now ＤD. It used to be called Petite Taqueria, and I took that place over and it's now DD. So such a full circle moment. But since that pop-up, I started to do more and more pop-ups. And it was like it ranges from like sit down dinners, full course out dinners to just like very simple like burger pop-ups or sandwich pop-ups. And then I went over to New York with Chef Jimmy at Madame Vo and Monsieur Vo, and I did a pop-up over there for that. And that was a success. You know, every single pop-up I did was such a success. And the HWood Group just have kept their eyes on me and was like, well, we don't have anything Asian in our portfolio. Like, and you're doing all these pop-ups. Like, do you think you want to have a place? Like, let's do something. Let's work on something. And then now we have Didi.
Wow. What is the difference between having a daily brick and mortar versus the pop-ups versus cooking online?
Oh, it's so different. It's so, so different. So like the pop-ups, it's usually like 1 or 2 days, right? And then you're done. That's it. That's a wrap. You can walk away from that. That was a success. But a brick and mortar, it's it's every single day and you have to keep that consistency going. You have to keep that fire going, you know, like you can't slow down. You can't just be comfortable at where you're at. You're constantly having to improve, make menu changes, make sure that the staff is happy, make sure that the cooks are happy, you know, like making sure that like everything is running as it should. It's kind of like the way I see like going to the gym, you know, like you can like your body will still be there and be okay, but like if you work out every single day and you work at it every day, no matter what it is, like it's always going to improve. It's always going to just keep going. And if you're not going up, you're going down.
Yeah.
So, right. And so it's just like you just have to keep working at it. You can't just be like, oh, that was done. Stepping away now.
That is so true. In the restaurant business, if you are not going up, you are going down because it's not stagnant. Things are just
Yeah.
not flatlining.
Nope.
There's just so much shit going on.
So much. So much.
Where did you get sort of like the inspiration in terms of like design, menu? Where, like, how do you figure out? Because there's, let's be honest, the Vietnamese cuisine, it's huge. There's a lot that goes on, but where do you sort of find that kind of focus and say, I'm going to focus on this and not go that way?
I think it comes back to just like, what do I like?
Hmm.
What do I see? How do I visualize this place to be? And when I close my eyes before any of this started, I imagined this place to be vibrant, to be fun, to be flavorful, to like just because like that's what Vietnamese like that's what Vietnamese culture is. It's so vibrant. It's so flavorful. It's so fun. Like when people think about Vietnam, I feel like they think about the war and they think that about how we're still considered a third world country. So they think like people in Vietnam live in huts and shit. And it's like there are parts of Vietnam where that's still around, but like if you go to D1 right now, it's a it's Vegas and Miami combined. Like people have no idea. And so that's what I really wanted to portray with ĐiĐi because not a lot of Vietnamese restaurants get portrayed that way. It's usually like a mom and pop shop and you go in and you go out. There's not really great service. The ambiance isn't, I mean, you're probably sitting next to like paper towels,
Yep.
you know? So it's just like I wanted it. I love going out in LA, and in LA is restaurants are mostly just vibes and no food. I wanted it to be good vibes and good food, and that at the end of the day, that's what ＤD is.
I don't know how many chefs I've had on, Vietnamese chefs that we've talked about Southeast Asian, specifically Vietnamese pricing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I know we're going to go deep on this because it's bullshit. You think about a bowl of pho, bowl of ramen, and I have this debate all the time. It's like there's a lot of shit going on with making a pot of pho. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on, a lot of labor, a lot of time, a lot of gas that you got to light these things up. There's so much shit going on, and people don't realize it. And then when people complain, especially our own community complains
Yes,
about
that.
the pricing, I lose my shit. So I wanted to discuss with you because you're one of the restaurants that are in a price range that is appropriately reflecting the level of game that we're talking about here. Fun, vibrancy, and flavor. And why did you decide? How did you come to that decision to go, fuck it, I'm going in that price range?
Because why not? Like I feel like that mentality of like, oh, you should keep your pho at like 15, $10. But it's like that is such a limiting thought behind the cuisine. That's not something that we can push forward, you know, like this is honestly like pricing Vietnamese food in a way where it can push the community forward, where it's not seen as like the cheaper alternative is pushing it forward. That thinking is so limiting to chefs and especially like young Southeast Asian chefs because they think that they should be boxed into like this traditional, authentic box of like, okay, I should stick to the authenticity and I should stick to tradition. But it's like, where's the room for creativity? Where's the room to grow? Like that's how food evolves over time. People play with food, and that's how like dishes get changed. That's how different regions have different dishes but are named the same. So like for me, like the price range I think reflects really well with like the area that Didi is in. And it's also like we have a lot of ingredients to source. It's not just flour and eggs to make pasta, like it's so much more to it. So for
That's what
me,
I'm
like
saying.
that's where I stand.
I break down it. Let's just say like a bowl of $10 pho. I don't know if they're still in existence anywhere, but let's say a $10 bowl of pho, we break down into price, right? We know the cost of food should not, there's a basic formula, but it should not be over 25% of your retail asking price, right? Typically, that's sort of like the formula. Like, you don't want to have your food costs go over 25% of like $10.
Yeah.
So it's like, but if you think about it, if you cook at home and you buy all these bones and the meats and everything, it's like $8 for a quality bowl of pho at home, right? By the time you add it
Yes.
up, you could even go to $10, $12 for your average bowl of pho at home. That
Yeah.
retail would be $40, right?
Yes. And
That'd be
that's an average bowl of pho. And like, and to add on top of that, it's like we also have to pay the
service.
people that make your pho a living wage.
Yeah. So if you like charge for a bowl of pho at $10, you got to be questioning, or $12, you got to be questioning, what are the ingredients? Is it really bones, or is it like bouillon cubes that people are tossing in for flavoring? Right? Because at 250, you cannot get some quality bones inside a really popular pho spot. And it's impossible. So we have to question, like, okay, well, let's think about the $25 bowl of pho. A little bit better, but it's nothing like a $40 bowl of pho that I make at home for like $10 of like the ingredients. So it's like this math that we don't think about, and we just like to complain about, like Vietnamese food costing so much, like at a place like Didi. And I want to
Mhm.
dispel that. I want to like make sure people understand, like, all of these costs go into the final price.
Absolutely. And it's not even just the broth too. It's like it's what you serve it with.
Yeah.
Like we serve ours with like really great short rib and a bone marrow. And so it's just like the addition that's on top of the broth, it's like it goes into that as well.
Yeah, and we're blinded by that sometimes, and we complain about it. I say to everybody who's listening, do not complain online about our pricing. Let's elevate and let's lift our community and have support for restaurants that are like on the edge, like Didi, who's like really getting us on the map in terms of pricing. I mean, that's like so important that we change that mentality for the second, third generation of Vietnamese people in America.
Absolutely. Because I think that we deserve to be in that price range. We absolutely do. And like the people that say that we aren't, like I ask them to like really question why. Why aren't we supposed to be in that price range? I think we should.
Yeah. Now, there must be growing pains in the last few weeks that that you've been opening. Would you be open to sharing some of the struggles?
I think the growing pains just like come from um training the employees that work at Didi, whether it's the servers or the cooks, because these are not people that understand and have worked with me throughout Didi. And so they don't really see what I see in my head when it comes to how to explain the food and how to cook the food, because I have a cook that like haven't even had experience on a wok, but literally just yesterday in the kitchen he was walking, like he was like really killing that wok, and like it just made me so happy. But like that wasn't because he came in with experience. It was just like him practicing every single night and like us like guiding him through that. And so it's not really like growing pains. It's just more so like, okay, like this is what we need to do in order to make this a smooth service. And
And,
then it's also just like making sure that the quality is up to standard when it comes, and the consistency is there.
and do you read the reviews? Because there's a lot of people in social media, when we are working in the social media space, we're like, don't read the reviews on the social media comments. But in a restaurant situation, you kind of have to study the reviews to know where you're kind of, and do you study it or do you not at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like we definitely look at it and we look at it with a grain of salt because there are people that are like very constructive, but there are people that are just like they just want to be haters, you know? But at the end of the day, like for me, if it's a constructive comment, like I'll take that into consideration and be like, okay, thank you so much for that. Like that helps me make this place better. If you're going into DD and you're like, it was okay. It wasn't doing it for me. I can't do anything with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, what can I improve on? Like, give me something that I can work with. You know, so if you're coming in and you're giving me constructive feedback, like I would love to hear that. You know, but if it's comments like, it was okay, or like it just wasn't for me, like I can't do anything with that.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair enough. It's such a tough game. I had two restaurants, so I understand the grind. It's just barbaric hours,
Yeah.
stress.
Absolutely. And like it also another thing is like you just can't let your ego get in the way of like improving your place because like we're not hot shit, you know, like we're always improving and we're every single day we take all the feedback into consideration and we're like, okay, we can make this better, we can make that better. Like we're growing every single day and that's the only way to do it, you know. And then I also have to like remind myself like, oh, don't get in your feelings about this one
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like girl, like you are doing the damn thing. These people don't have no restaurant, so like they don't really know. So like for me, I take it with a grain of salt. I take the constructive criticism and then you just get better.
I was going to ask about that. This idea of like, being in your emotions and being out of it. At a really young age, you are thrusted into a leadership position to command and control this whole set of like moving parts, right? How do you deal with that mental health of, the pressures of what goes on in a kitchen?
That's such a good question. But I think it starts from my daily routine of how I express my emotions and how I deal with them. I write a lot. I'm a writer, and so I journal. I just word vomit in my journal and then I reflect on it and I'm just like, okay, like I process it. So that's what I do every day. And then like I think working out also really, really helps. But like for me, I that my journaling is my outlet.
It's a great reply. Just what a what a fascinating thing when we can sit and reflect about during the day or first thing in the morning, and it gives us this sense of like nothing is really important. It's just another day. Then we just do our best shit.
Yeah, really, like nothing is so like detrimental to the point where you can't get over it,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, I write in my journal to remind me like one foot in front of the other, like things could be worse than this. You could be living in your car, but you're not.
There's two paths, maybe three, maybe four. There's social media. There's a restaurant. There's traveling to Vietnam with the groups. Where do you think that you are going to land in a few years? I know it's an open-ended sort of like your journey is wide open. You're very young, but where do you think that one day you'll gravitate towards more?
I would love to live overseas. I think that's like one of my main thing. I would love to bring Didi over to Saigon because I still have family that lives over there. So I can provide jobs for my family over there because my family over there, we don't have any type of business. And it's really hard to get jobs in Vietnam right now if you're not connected, if you don't have connections. And we're not connected, you know? And so like for me, if I am put in a position where I can do that, like I would love to do that.
Yeah, but would you live there like for the
Oh
rest?
yeah, I'm moving back home. I'll probably like this will be like my ideal year. Half of the year in Vietnam and then the other half I can be over here.
Yeah, that would be. I like the 3 months here, 3 months there kind of like move.
See, like yeah, like I think I don't know. I think yeah, that would just that would just make sense for a Vietnamese girl like me.
Mm-hmm. And people who travel back to Vietnam quite a bit, it's weird. Like I talk about this with my group a lot because a lot of us go back to Vietnam quite a bit. It's the weirdest thing when you go to Vietnam. I don't know, as a Việt kiều, it's the weirdest thing where you bump into people at different places, because there's not a whole lot of places that Việt kiều hang out and congregate, but you see these people and you see friends much 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 more than you do when you live in LA.
Yeah, it's so easy to hang out with people in Vietnam. Like it's so easy. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because like everyone just drives on their motorcycle, but like it's so easy.
But I don't know if that's a function of like being an American, we grind, 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 and we don't make time, or is it because the way Vietnam is set up, the setting just makes it more inviting and you just always want to be out?
I think it's the setting. I definitely think it's the setting, because like over in Vietnam, I grew up I don't know if you know where this is at, but it's a town called Vũng Tàu.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a beach town. Yeah, so that's my hometown. That's where I was born and raised. And so we would every day we would go to the beach, go home, eat dinner as a family, and then we drive the beach.
Wow.
We drive around the beach, and we just hang out outside, but like when you're over here, you're cooped up inside the house. Like there's nowhere to go. Like my parents feel like it's dangerous to step outside.
Here.
Yeah, here, so
Yeah.
they don't go.
And I wonder what that is. I mean, is it danger, or is it just because we're not, or
I just think that they're just not familiar with the area. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like it's not really dangerous, but it's just like you have no real genetic connection with people here.
Yeah, but like when you go like down to places like Little Saigon, like you'll see the uncles hanging out at the coffee shops. You know?
My final
So,
question is, what does it mean to be Vietnamese to you?
oh my gosh, what a hard-hitting question. Great question. What does it mean to be Vietnamese to me? Um, it means that it means to just like be myself, and that's like the one advice whenever people ask me for advice. The number one advice is that I always give is to like be yourself, like be like really truly who you are on the inside. Like that is who you are. And being Vietnamese, that is who I am. That was where I was born. That was where I learned all of my, like mannerisms, and like that eating Vietnamese food it makes me more me. And so being Vietnamese just to me makes me feel more myself.
And where can we find you on social media, and where can we find ĐiĐi?
You can find me on all social platforms at ĐiΔi, and you can find ĐiΔi on all social platforms at ＤD WeHo.
And how do you spell Tue Nguyen? And then how did you come up with that name?
I came up with it in high school. It was so like I've actually never changed it, and it was so random. But there was a guy that I went to high school with. His name is Gabe, and his handle was Gabe the Babe, right? And somebody one day just called him that, like called him by his at name out loud. And I was like, oh, that's a cool at name. And so I was like, okay, well, I can be like, oh, my name is Tue
Man, it's so clever. It's super clever. How do you spell that?
So it's TWAYDABAE.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I had a really good time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and speaking with me and asking all the hard-hitting questions.
Likewise, I know you're super busy, so thank you once again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Vietnamese with Kenneth Nguyen. Special thanks to Brittany Tran, to Jane Nguyen, Catherine Nguyen, Tina Pham, Sydney Jamie, and Crystal Trin. Please find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at The Vietnamese Podcast.